so what we're saying is people who are really sick, almost without exception, in fact, without exception, are people who life has caused to really ask for something. In other words, they're intense beings who have asked, and they've really got a strong stream going, but they're standing in circumstances that have caused them to look in opposition to what they're asking for. Think about it. The people who have strong stress in their life are always those who are really trying to live life in a powerful way, but just can't get turned around in the direction of it, you see. So that's why we talk always and never-endedly about the art of allowing. The art of allowing myself to be as well as my disease has caused me to want to be. The art of allowing myself to have as much abundance as my lack of abundance has helped me to know that I want and deserve. The art of allowing the clarity that my confusion has made me realize that I must have. So there are all kinds of games that you can play with each other, and that's why some methods work and some methods don't work. But we just think it would be ever so helpful to understand why what's working is working and why what's not working is not working. And the reason that medicine, for the most part, doesn't work long term. In other words, they can put out one fire, but almost as soon as they put out one fire, there's another and another and another and another, because unless a person changes the pattern of their thoughts, they're going to continue to disallow the wellness to be. And it's going to spurt out in a way and another way and another way. Don't you think it's interesting that as mass consciousness, almost as quickly as you find the cure to one deadly disease, another one that you never even heard of before sprouts up? And it's not because people are out there thinking about those diseases and dreaming them up. It's because they are thinking in opposition to the desires that life has caused them to set into motion. Isn't that nice to know? We want you to understand, and we know that you do, but we're going to say these words anyway, that when you ask pointed questions like you'd been asking, and you get such a vivid answer as that, we want you to understand that heaven on earth is so natural, because heaven on earth is source expressing on earth. In other words, you are source energy. You are the angels you see from heaven. You are heavenly, and you are focused here on earth. And you allow heaven on earth by letting what's here inspire you to more and going with it. In other words, as the source energy within you, we have to tell you that when you sift through life and you come to conclusions of what you want, we experience that improvement that you are asking for. And when your angels are encouraging you to live heaven on earth, what they're saying is, go with your own flow. Stop looking in opposition to what you're asking for. That literally is the definition of heaven on earth. Heaven on earth is being the source energy being that I am, expressed in a physical body on the leading edge on planet Earth, letting the environment on planet Earth inspire me to new planet Earth type material and unmaterial experiences and desires. And then being wise enough to give my undivided attention, undivided, which means I'm undivided from the source that is me. I'm in vibrational alignment with that which is my source. So the whole of me is having this heavenly experience on earth. So often, physical friends think that they're dead or alive, which means they're physical or non-physical, which means the non-physical part of me is living the heavenly experience and I'm living the earthly experience. And so many are separating the two. And your work and our work and Jerry and Esther's work is about helping people to understand that there is no separation, and that in fact you can't separate yourself. We said that earlier. This stream is so big and moving so fast, you can never get out of this stream of well-being. You can pinch yourself off from it a bit and get beat up by it a little bit, but when you croak, you're going with the stream, you see. And so heaven is assured, but heaven on earth is letting yourself go with the flow while you are here. And so how do you find it? You find it in positive emotion. That's when we say, listen to the call of source. What is the call of source? And we think what is troubling to people is that they sort of get what heaven on earth must feel. Jerry and Esther sat in Coburg, Oregon the other day. They were having their monster bus worked on at the manufacturing plant. And they'd been having a wonderful few days there with nice people. And they were in their favorite restaurant on the planet. And it was a nice day. They'd been walking through the gardens at that restaurant. And they were sitting there noticing all of the positive aspects of this good feeling place and remembering that person from last year and that person from last year. And vibrational look. I think that's the cook that was here last year. And that they were tuned in, tapped in, turned on, in love with life, in love with each other, in love with this place. And the waiter put a salad down in front of Esther, and she shivered from head to toe with enthusiasm over this salad. She said, "What is in this salad?" We say, "It's heaven on earth." It's heaven on earth. In other words, in that state of vibrational alignment with source, the source that is within her was experiencing that salad. Now you got to know, this stuff was grown right there locally. And that morning, somebody went and picked it from a garden and carried it in a basket and washed it carefully and dried it carefully and assembled it lovingly and creatively. And they had put so much into it, and it was such a match to the appreciation that Jerry and Esther were living, that that salad was orgasmic. It was heaven on earth. It was heaven on earth, you see. Now, there are other people in the restaurant eating the same salad, and we promise you they were not feeling like Esther was feeling. And some would say, was the salad the difference? And we say, no, the vibration. You are vibrationally allowing who you are to have the experience with you or not. And so we think that what heaven on earth is, and it's worth trumpeting some horns to do it, angelic horns, by the way. We think that what that is all about is helping you to understand that heaven on earth means you being so vibrationally aligned with the source that is truly who you are, that you are allowing the heavenly experience that you can only have when you are in combination. Recovering from sickness is heaven on earth. Finding your way someplace when you don't really know the way is heaven on earth. Feeling an inspiration about what to do is heaven on earth. Smelling a glorious fragrance is heaven on earth. Loving someone you don't even know is heaven on earth. Hating them because of where they lived, that's hell. It is. And unnecessary. And can't be fixed with anything other than alignment, you see. So, turns out it is as Jesus said it was, and so many others. That kingdom of heaven that you are looking for is within you. It's your vibrational alignment, you see. And that hell that so many are worried about exists nowhere but right here on earth. It doesn't exist. It's not something that you will go to later if you don't obey whatever. It's how you feel when you pinch yourself off from the heaven, which is natural. So when someone tells you, live heaven on earth, they're not telling you to prepare the earth for everyone else. They're telling you, find your heaven, and through the clarity of your example, teach it. We want to give you a picture of what we see with so many people who are creating these wonderful empires or structures or experiences. The majority of the creation is in place before you gather your first dollar or put your first brick in place in the first building. In other words, the creation happens in your mind. And so every time you have a good time somewhere, you flow toward it. Every time you wish you had more fun in an area, you launch more of a rocket to it. In other words, through life experience, you've done a wonderful job of creating this vibrational escrow. And as we see it, and we do, nothing more needs to be done about that. The dream is in place, and the dollars are too, in terms of the creation of it. But now your work must be to let your dream please you rather than worry you. And so you have to let the dream call you rather than torment you. And so what happens to so many of our physical friends is that even though their creation is complete and universal forces would begin setting up things in order for you to bring it to manifestation or fruition, the fact that you can't see the path makes you look upstream, and as you look upstream, then you hold yourself in a pattern of indefinite not allowing. And once that goes on for a while, because you've had this dream for a while, once that goes on for a while, the dream beats you up instead of sustaining you. And so you have to find a way to make the dream of this amusement park so satisfying that it feeds you even though it has not been erected. Even though you have not purchased the land for it, even though the money to purchase the land for it has not shown up in enough abundance to do anything about it, you have to let the dream still please you. And when you do, everything else will fall into alignment. So my dream, we're asking you this, is my dream big enough to attract the money that it needs to become? So when you say, but I don't know if it will be this one reformatted. I don't know if it will be a replacement of this one altogether. I don't know if it will be a relationship with someone I've already met. I don't know if a new person will have to come into my life altogether. And we say, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter, because what you want, which is so keenly known by the biggest, mostest, broadest part of you, what you want is so already well established that if you could just chill out and stop worrying about it, you could move toward it. So relative to the subject of relationships, we always say, get your mind off of it and get on to some other things. It's harder to do with things like health, because you take your body nearly everywhere you go. And it's harder to do relative to money, because money is such a big part of everything that you do. And it's not easy relative to relationships, we know, because so many things that you do remind you of wanting to do it with someone else. We know that too. But you've just got to, our friend gave us the best words earlier, how can I distract myself from the thoughts that are keeping me apart from what I want? And we think those were powerful words, because what they say is, I know that I've already created what I want, and I know that my negative thoughts are keeping me away from it. So how do I stop doing that? And we say, by beginning to do something else, because we've never known anybody who really could just stop thinking that. In other words, when you say, I'm not going to think about the pink elephant, you're thinking about the pink elephant. When you say, I'm not going to smoke anymore, you want to smoke. When you stop saying, I'm going to get off cookies, cookies show up everywhere. So you can't say, I'm not going to do something. You have to do something else. And so we would begin saying things such as, I'm going to start enjoying my own company more. I'm going to get into touch with the things I like to do. I'm going to pretend like I'm in the middle of a demanding relationship where I never get to do anything I want to do, and that person has gone home to see her mother. And now I get to do whatever I want. And we would just play games about getting in touch with what I like to do. And as you get in touch with what you like to do and how you like to spend time, and thinking about how you like to feel, and sort of leave a partner out of the equation for a little while, you'll come into alignment with the partner that you want. And sometimes people will say, well, please tell me that I'm going to be able to mend this relationship. And we want to say to you, really, whether you do or not, whether you actually mend this relationship or not, it's far easier to anticipate a brand new one, because you have habits of thought about the one you've got going that are so annoying. Whether that one's displeasing you, or whether you're uncomfortable because that one is telling you that you are displeasing them. In any case, you've got negative habits going about that relationship. And so now we're going to say something very powerful here. You could fix the relationship you've got right now faster by pretending that you're moving to a brand new person than by trying to anticipate the person you've already got changing. It's like, isn't it easier to imagine a better job than the one you've got getting better? Isn't it easier to imagine a beautiful new house than fixing up the dump you live in? You get our point. So, and not that that's the way that it will go, but we're just giving you some ideas of some things that would be easier. So that kind of movement is not so necessary, but we never see you vibrate your nose. In other words, you never say, I think I will vibrate my nose in order to make a point. You just don't do it. So when your nose vibrates, you got to know somebody else is the thought behind it, yes? So that's the reason that it happens in that way. For Esther, when we want to get her attention when she's chatting with Jerry and so involved in what she's doing that she can't notice us, we give her an eye twitch. That gets her every time. Or sometimes when she's driving, we just begin thumping on the steering wheel. And sometimes she's so busy in the middle of her conversation that we thump for over a mile before she catches on. In other words, it's not easy to get your attention when you are involved in the things that you're involved in.